to be on non-negotiables in relationships, and this can transfer into friendships, relationships with family, and then also obviously with our partners. So it's pretty foundational and fundamental for us to be able to have non-negotiables and know what they are. So I'm going to help you kind of figure out that, and then you can create these on your own if you haven't already. Feel free, if you're watching, either live or later, you can comment any questions or comments that you have. Bear with me as I'm kind of looking at my program that I have created, and I'll be kind of coming back and forth. So one of the things I'll start off with talking about, and we hear this a lot, is NRE, so new relationship energy. It's quite common, right? It happens with any relationship that we have. And it's like that new, exciting feeling, right? That like infatuation, that like in love feeling that we all get when we first start kind of seeing someone, whether it's like you have a primary partner or you're single poly or whatever the case may be. Even in non-monogamy, this happens. It happens with everyone. And what is happening inside your body is like there's chemicals that are kind of firing off, and it's to do with, making you feel, so deeply in love with each other. And then, this feeling can last, 3 months, 1 month, or it can last like up to 3 years. Hey, Suki, thanks for joining. So I'm talking about the NRE, the new relationship energy, right? This like infatuation, this in love feeling. This can last up to 3 years of this like honeymoon period. And, we often talk about this in non-monogamy about like how to deal with the new relationship energy, this like excited feeling when you have a new partner, and what happens with, your other partner. It often kind of creates some issues. So this is one really important way to kind of help creating these non-negotiables, so that we don't forget about the really important stuff, and we don't allow these chemicals in our brain that are firing off to take over and blind us from seeing, what is truly in front of us, okay? It definitely affects our rational decisions and how we make them. So, a way to deal with that is just kind of having these non-negotiables set, so that you can, no matter what you're feeling, refer back to them when you have made them kind of in a really clear state, because the chemical reaction that's happening in your body is like being addicted to drugs, right? Like you get so addicted to this new person that you can't get enough of them, and you will let things go that you wouldn't normally let go because they're not set really solidly, okay? And then when you do kind of start to see things, when these chemicals start to wear off, this new relationship energy starts to wear off, and you start to see all these traits, a lot of times like sometimes we're like a year in and committed. Sometimes people are married, sometimes they have kids. We all know the situation, right? Because these chemicals can last for a really long time. And in future kind of lives, I will talk about how to kind of carry on that like excitement and, the connection after the energy kind of dissipates, when it's a person who aligns with, the kind of relationship that you want to have and the kind of partners that you want to have, right? So, in our minds will often create this illusion of this person or the relationship that kind of fits the story that we want, right? We'll make them kind of into whatever we want them to be. We, most of us have been there or know someone who's been there, and, it can be definitely a good or bad thing, right? So we want to make sure that the people that we're choosing complement the life that we want to have, and, that it's not going to bring harm to us, right? You need to take care of yourself emotionally, physically, and mentally. And that's another way that having your non-negotiables can really kind of protect you in a way, right? So let's talk about, sorry, I'm just reading my notes here. I talked really fast and kind of yes. So if you're already in a relationship, it's okay for you to be able to kind of create these non-negotiables as well. Like there's nothing wrong with that, even if you're already in an existing relationship or relationships. Please don't feel that you can't do this. It is really important to still do this. And this is not something that you want to expose to your partner, when you're first dating them, because oftentimes people will do what they have to do to be what you want them to be, right? They want you to like them, they want to be in a relationship, or they're kind of feeling that new relationship energy, those chemicals are flying, they're addicted. So people will pretend to be something that they're not. So it is really important to kind of keep these things to yourself until you really know and you have a foundation that's really solid, and you've gotten to a good point where you're not necessarily like addicted to this person, right? Like you see them for who they are, and then you can have this conversation, but that's generally kind of well down the road. So it is really important to remember that these aren't things that we just kind of fly out to people and show them, like, these are my non-negotiables, and how do you feel about those, right? Like, because they're gonna lie, they're gonna pretend. People do it all the time. Okay. So that's like, even if you're reevaluating an existing relationship, which happens in all types of relationships. So if you're reevaluating one, whether you're married or not, it's been long term, it's a primary, it's not a prime, whatever the case may be, this will help you, right? If you're struggling with knowing, is this relationship for me? Is this person really looking for the same thing? Are we wanting the same things? Do we believe in the same things? This can be done, okay? So what are non-negotiables? They are things that you are not willing to negotiate in your life long term. May it be friendships, family relationships, and then partnerships, okay? These are characteristics in a partner and characteristics in a relationship. They're both of those things. So what you're not willing to negotiate on, okay? It's not, you're not willing to have it any other way in your life. And it sounds sometimes kind of overbearing and controlling, but it's not. This is about making sure that you have the life and the partners and the relationships that you want and that align with you, okay? Because there are those people out there. You have to be honest with yourself about this, right? If you just kind of half it, then it's not going to be real, and you're not going to find the real non-negotiables. It has to be something that like you're not willing to stand for, right? You have to it's like drawing a line in the sand. Like the non-negotiables are things that you have to stick to. So they have to be non-negotiables, 100%. If it's like an iffy, then, if it's like something that you're flexible on, that's not a non-negotiable, and then it needs to be removed. Like non-negotiables are exactly that. Okay. It's not on a wish list, of like positive traits, right? It's just, you want to also talk about negative things too, right? Like this is the things that you want and don't want to have. It's both sides. It's like, non-negotiables include both positive and negative traits. There's, and I'll go over some examples as well. But first we're going to talk about, how do you start your list? So first you're going to write down all of the things that that you do not want in a relationship and in a partner. Okay? Write all of those things down. And you do that, like I said, for both your partners and relationships, because they're separate. All the things that you do not want in a partner and all the things that you do not want in a relationship. A good way to reflect is thinking back about past relationships, about things that you do not want to have again. You do not want to experience again. You can think about the way that you grew up, your parents' relationships, the things that you saw growing up, and just overall past relationships in general. And even, just experiences, it can be, witnessing other people's relationships as well. So reflect on those things, and then write them down. It can be things like no domestic violence. It can be things like, they must be a spiritual person, or must be vegan, or, into fitness or likes to hunt, whatever the case may be, right? And then, also get really deep, not just superficial stuff like is vegan, right? If that's super like deal breaker for you. But go as deep as you can and be as honest as you can. There's going to be like bigger things like must not be emotionally controlling, must not be abusive, or for us, right, it must be polyamorous. I think that, and I often hear this from other poly people about dating monogamous people, who they're okay with, dating someone who has a wife or has another partner, but they would never do it. And then they run into the case of then when this monogamous person finds someone who wants to be not monogamous with them, then they leave the polyamorous person to be with the monogamous person. And I'm not saying that this can't work for some people, but that might be a non-negotiable for you, that you're just not willing to date monogamous people, or whatever the case may be. Whatever the details are, they're individual to you, and get detailed, like get it in there. Do not be afraid to be honest, because this is your list and nobody's going to see it. This is for you, okay? And it's going to vary from every single person depending on, what you're looking for, what kind of, what type of poly you're looking for, all of those things, okay? And remember that most people who are unhappy in their relationships have been settled, right? They've settled, rather than staying true to their needs. And you can't fool yourself for very long. Like eventually it just becomes unbearable and you have to do something about it, okay? So then you're gonna leave that for a couple days. And after a couple days, you just let it, like, put it away and then come back to it in a couple days, and we're gonna go through it again. And when you go through it, you're gonna write 3 different things, okay? So D is for definitely, M is for maybe, and then T is for toss, to take off. And you're gonna go through the whole list and do that for every single thing, okay? And this is going to help you figure out whether like something on your list is truly non-negotiable. Like you definitely have to have it after you've kind of simmered on it for a couple days and you're reading over it again, and maybe you were just kind of like writing everything that came to mind. As far as maybe, like those are things that obviously you then realize that you're willing to kind of be flexible on. Maybe they don't have to be vegan, they whatever the case may be. Something important to remember, if you have the thought, can you change a non-negotiable if the person has other really great qualities? You run into a lot of problems with this, but make sure, my advice is to make sure that if there are 2 things or more that are ticked off on your non-negotiable list, it's not a good idea. If that's a true non-negotiable, okay, if it's a true non-negotiable and there's 2, they tick off at least like 2 or more of your non-negotiables, then walk away and end it. If it's something that you are realizing that, you can negotiate, you're willing to bend on, it's a maybe, then it shouldn't have been on there in the first place and you weren't really being honest with yourself from the beginning. And that's why it's important to walk away from it and then come back and really be honest with yourself when you're creating these, because these are the relationships that are in your future and you want them to be the best possible ones, right? You want these people that you're building relationships with to be the kind of people you want to be around, right? So yeah, like if you are willing to change it, then you realize, it truly wasn't a non-negotiable and it should have been on there. And I like my clients to really do this as true as they possibly can, so that you don't have to worry about whether it's truly non-negotiable, okay? You'll find out after some time that if you've compromised on something, it wasn't. But I would rather you not have to discover it that way. So it's this is why it's super important to have these things in place, in the beginning before you meet someone, or, it helps you kind of decipher through this, like, a new relationship energy, the chemicals, the in love feeling, right? Because it does affect our judgment when we feel that way. We're like high on them and we can't get enough of them, and we just want to spend all our time with them, and we can't stop talking about them. And, then it's hard to look through that, at the things that really matter to us in our lifelong term. There we go. Okay. So how are you going to use your list? Like I said, if they do not meet, if there's like, they tick off 2 of your non-negotiables, then get out immediately. Undesired behaviors or traits become amplified as time passes, right? So the longer you are in the relationship, then the more comfortable you get with this person, and the harder it is to kind of end it and leave, right? We often see this in abusive relationships. It becomes harder and harder and harder, because people don't change unless they want to. And you want to find someone who, at the foundation, meets your non-negotiables. And I think it's really important, and I've talked about this before in the other videos, that you cannot expect your partner to be something that you are not. Okay? This is really foundationally important. You better be everything that you expect your partner to be. And if you're not, then you have some work to do. Okay? I'm sorry if that hurts some people. Don't get butt hurt. It's just the truth. You cannot. 100%. It's like, no, you can't. It makes me very angry when people do that. But anyways, so yes. So people can change, but it's of their own accord, right? People only change when they want to, not because you're asking them to, or because you're trying to force them to, okay? That's rare, and they might do, like I said, if you show them these non-negotiables, they might kind of do those things in the beginning because they want you to like them, they want to keep you, and then it goes away. And their true self comes about, okay? So going forward into your relationships with confidence, when you this will give you confidence when you're going forward, when you have non-negotiable set. It just makes things so much easier. You can refer back to this list, and say, okay, like, does this person, fill the criteria of the things that I want that are, non-negotiable? Like, what do I want and not want, right? And when the red flags come up, it's really important to pay attention to those, okay? So I try to give you both, the things you don't want, and then also the things that you do, the good and the bad, because it's not all about the bad, it's about the good too. And also, think about, think about your desires, think about yourself, what you're willing to commit to yourself, right? To meet those. Visualize the relationship that you deserve and want, the relationships, that you deserve and want, I should say. And remember, don't share this list with your partners. It's not, like, way later when you really, it's like rock solid years down the road. Okay. And then, there's another fun way to kind of work with that. And like I said, in a later live, I'll kind of go over that. And, that's kind of the jam about non-negotiables. Hopefully that'll, made sense. If you have any questions, like I said, just, put comments in the thing. You can always reach out to me about it if you have any questions. But, sit down and do this. Like, take some time on your own to really do this, whether you're single or in any amount of relationships. This is really important, and it's a really cool thing to do to get really crystal clear, and then it allows you to look at yourself as well, okay, and see what kind of things you need to work on in your own person. All right? That's all I have for you today. Again, I will post the communication live that I did in the other group. I'll post the recording in here so that you guys can watch it in a couple days, so it gives you some time to kind of catch up. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys have a good night. Bye.